This is actually segment 2 in my gratex response video. So I did segment number 1 this morning, and I don't know, I was a little tense. So, yeah, this will be calmer. It's after work now. And I'm tired, and I don't care as much. Yeah, I just don't care. Anyway, so let's continue. So, yeah, the beginning will be after this. I'm going to do it that way, just because I don't want, you have to work your way up to the way I was this morning. You have to work your way up to it.
To the death of God or Santa Claus or whatever, you know. It's a reaction to the Western culture.
Yeah, whatever. You've done this stuff before. Again, you want to just turn it all into psychology. Nobody on the internet apparently can take anything, sentences together and talk about, well, is this an accurate description of reality? This is what the reality is. I mean, we should talk about the intensity of our certainty. Maybe we should actually have to invest something, like we all chip in $500 or something into a pool, and then we're defending the assertions we make. I don't know. It really just seems like there's things that are beyond reasonable doubt. What's beyond a reasonable doubt, in my opinion, is the theory of evolution. And the theory of evolution, as basically defined and described, points to certain facts. It comes with them. You can't escape them. They come with the package. And part of that is this desire concept, and the fact that it does pervert perspective, and we have to be aware of that. We have to be aware that we have sensibilities that make us comfortable with some things and uncomfortable with other things in a very physiological way, and that we have to guard against allowing those prejudices to manifest into some sort of philosophical theory. Now, there's certainly people on the internet, I would concede, who are philosophizing. They're rationalizing some subjective bigotry they have. I'd say we call these the racist and such. Okay, they have a problem with an aesthetic, and they're going to rationalize that problem with the aesthetic by saying, I'm going to validate it by coming up with some rationale that's going to dehumanize these other people and say, yes, they're somehow intrinsically flawed, that's why I physiologically don't react well with them. Some kind of bullshit like that. So yeah, the phenomenon exists, but if you're going to make that accusation, if you're going to point that finger, then you better point it with specific accusations. It's just bullshit to do it any other way. If you're not going to point to somebody and say, this is where you did that, then it's just bullshit in an argument. To just say it as a blanket statement, I'll just discount an entire philosophy and just call them all, psychological fuck-ups. And say they're all psychologically bigoted. And that nobody could possibly have an argument that wasn't based on a psychological bigotry. I mean, it's just bullshit if you don't have the balls to do that, you weasel.
And civilization, isn't it? People are being indoctrinated through all these memes that are prevalent throughout.
Yeah, well, look, they're being indoctrinated through one force, and that is the force of ignorance. They have been taught that they don't have to qualify their opinion. They don't have to justify their opinion. They can just say, killing fetuses is bad! Killing fetuses is bad! It's murder, 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 murder! They don't have to rationally explain how killing a fetus is any different than eating a pig. They don't have to explain any of that. How exactly describe the exact harm and the mechanism of the harm and all of that stuff. So that's bogus. All right? That's the problem, though. It's not some sort of philosophy thing. No, it's just an ignorance thing. It's some people don't qualify themselves. They don't say it directly and put themselves up to scrutiny. Now, I do that, fuckwit. All right? And I defy you to take one of my F-list videos and explain which one of the statements in those videos is not factual.
All of our media, subconsciously of course, stories of protagonists rising up from the ranks, winning the woman, defeating the antagonist, living happily ever after. Fairy tales that just don't adequately match up to reality for 99.99999% of life. And
So this is going to be some sort of generic excuse. So you can just claim every time that life is fundamentally flawed or broken, that the only reason why you're seeing the broken is because you had some higher expectation, and that higher expectation was a fantasy or a fable. It wasn't some sort of rational perspective that, oh, wait a minute, I've been going to this store. My parents took me to this store. You go to the store, you pay way too much. Everything is like 400,000 times the price that you logically know the thing is worth. And because they've been taking it to you all your whole life, you're supposed to just say it's rational, it's reasonable to go to the preposterously expensive store. No, you have a right to, after some time of breaking away from culture, to say, no, that's fundamentally stupid. Because mountain climbers gave birth to me does not mean I have to see logic or sense or purpose or mission in just climbing fucking mountains. I have no such obligation, and you have no right to say because the young mountain climbing child says no to mountain climbing that he's only doing it because he had some expectation that there was the fairy god mountain monster that was going to, give out free candy or something. Fuck you, weasel.
When the kid discovers that Santa isn't real, the kid cries and is harmed by that reality, despite it being the reality all along. And whilst they believed in a delusion, they were quite happy. But the thing is, I argue that they weren't...
Yeah, well, like I said, I never believed in Santa Claus, and I never believed in God, ever. Not for a moment of my existence did I believe in any of these entities. I never believed in happily ever after. I knew as soon as I heard the words, pretty much, that it was complete bullshit. I was like, well, where's the next page in the book? All right, I didn't say, oh, that's a very good story. It's very complete. It's all finished. No, I said, what's the next page? What happened the next day? All right, so you can't use this fucking slander brush to smear, just shove that in everybody's face, just shove that shit in everybody's face like that. That's just such a bullshit, weak argument. Make a fucking rational argument. Explain how it's not true that life is stupid.
Been introduced to the delusion in the first place, they'd still be just as happy, or maybe happy but not just as happy with the delusion, and B, they wouldn't have been harmed by the realisation that the delusion or the brainwashing was a lie by their parents or society or whatever.
Yeah, well, whatever. Oh, that's regardless of who cares. Again, so you just don't get what is going on here. Right? There's a game being played. Let's just put a chessboard in space. And there's different pieces on it that have different perspectives. There's pawns, bishops, knights, kings, queens. And they're moving in their little structure. They have little squares in front of them. They have certain options. And they have a certain perspective. All right? And so, yeah, we as pawns, we as bishops, we as knights, whatever we are, we can rise above our station. And we can view the game. We can see that, oh, I get it now. I get the relationship between me and mammals. I get the relationship between me and all life on Earth. I can get the relationship between me and a social culture. I can get the relationship of how the culture has evolved. I can get how the king and the queen are just full of shit and they're only there because of a tradition and no other reason whatsoever. They didn't earn it. They didn't do anything to deserve it. And so their stature is fundamentally irrelevant. They have nothing to say to me that's of any more value than any other pawn in the game. Come on. That's what's being done here. And what I'm demanding of you is that if you're going to make an argument relevant to the whole game. Don't be making this bullshit argument that pawns aren't allowed to talk about bishops. Yeah, they are.
And hence, all the expectations that they've built up within themselves wouldn't be crushed because they wouldn't have such ridiculously fantastically.
Well, again, the game isn't about your existence, fuckwit. Okay, the game plays on. It plays through you. It can play right over you. Okay, you can be the first piece knocked out. You can be the last piece knocked out. The game will knock you out. The game will go on. And that's the subject of philosophy, is what is the nature of the game. That's what's being argued. That's the fundamental argument of antinatalism. What is the nature of the game? What does it do? And the argument is all it does is dispose of pieces. It doesn't do anything else.
Expectations, and hence they wouldn't go through this grief stage. And to me...
Well, look, we can argue that you wouldn't go through your withdrawal stage, and your horny stage, and your need stage, and your deprivation stage, and you're just blinded by your addiction. And you're stealing grandma's money because you gotta have it. That's all you're doing here. You're just cheating the truth because you're desperate. Now, you see how that's just... That kind of argumentation doesn't really go anywhere if you're going to get serious about having an argument about, like, what is the truth of this circumstance. And if you're going to concede that it's unintelligent design, that it's evolution, and it's basically gladiator wars, start with that premise and explain how that turns into something worth preserving. Explain how the engine itself is not consuming more than it's producing.
I argue, and this is not just me trying to belittle
Yeah, fuck you. It is. It's all you're ever doing. You're always saying it's just, I'm not. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You just did it with Fred. You basically called him a pessimist and used it as a slander. You just used it as a fucking mud. That's all. You threw it like a ball of mud. Fucker.
Infantilize people who believe in antinatalism or epoism. To me, this is the grief stage of somebody encountering the fallacious nature of their culture. Okay, that to me is what this...
Yeah, well, whatever. Like I said, so you're just going to ignore the subject is all you're saying. I'm not going to talk about the subject. I'm not going to talk about the fact that human beings gain intelligence. They start to think about life, and they say, what am I doing here? And they start drawing conclusions, and the first one that's thrown at them is that God made it, and so just play along because God's going to reward everybody, and so they say, the hell with that, that's nonsense. So they start to look at culture and family and the other social mechanisms and say, maybe there's something here for me to play, maybe there's some kind of game, maybe I have some other move besides killing that pawn in front of me or stealing his girlfriend or doing that or doing this. Maybe there's some other way to play the game, and some of them find Buddha or some other bullshit to glorify or defend playing, and then some just stop for a little while and try to look around and look over the pieces and see the game board. And then they say, what is this game doing? Oh, that's right, it's evolution, damn it. Oh, it's a replicating molecule, damn it. So that's one of those hard facts. It's a hard fact, shithead, okay? That there's a process of evolution taking place on planet Earth. And all that's happening is a DNA molecule, a hunk of chromosomes, are replicating themselves. And they're doing it through us. That is what's called a fact. Okay, it's not an opinion anymore. It's not just some vaporous thing made up that hasn't been tested. No, it's a fucking fact. There's no other reasonable alternative explanation for what is taking place on this planet than that simple truth. Now, you can say you don't believe that and then just become a religious nut, as you are, and just say it honestly for a change. Or you can accept that fact, concede that fact, and explain how your phantasmagorical, purposeful world exists in that context. I say you can't do that rationally. Not even close.
So that's how I approach it. And I use evidence to back this up, because the comments that antinatalists and
You use no evidence. You use dodges. You do stupid, idiotic things like saying, well, because the non-existent non-exist, they can't possibly have an interest. And so that I could just turn that around and say, well, if I murder somebody, they don't exist anymore. So how can you prosecute me for affecting them when they don't exist anymore? So unless you can bring the dead back to life and have them testify against me, I didn't commit a crime. But you can't prove any crime because they don't exist, shithead. How could I possibly harm something that doesn't exist?
Eve, on my videos, confirms that time and again, that is the case, you know, for the most part, for most people indulging in it.
Yeah, for most people. Is that another one of these good standards? Look, bullshit. That's all there is here. There's just bullshit. You show me. Highlight some statement you've made in any of your videos that you're going to tell me is beyond a reasonable doubt factual. You haven't provided any evidence of anything. You haven't made a single goddamn statement relevant to either evolution or of either the universe or of life on this planet. Nothing relevant to that subject whatsoever. You have speculated that somehow you think, based on no evidence, that there's some validity to the Drake equation, which is provably nonsense. So explain to me, where are you getting this sense of purpose from? Oh, that's right. You're rationalizing it because of your psychological problems, because you can't see past your psychology.
And it is an indulgent philosophy that has a hedonistic...
It's just so idiotic. It's hedonistic to live your life, find it troublesome that you're compromising the welfare of animals. You know, people just do it routinely when you're a kid. The roast beastie is right there on your table, the little carcass of the dead critters. And somehow you're being a hedonist because this disturbs you, and you say, this isn't right. There's something wrong with this picture. And so that you just say, okay, that's something I got to get out of my life because that's wrong. And you see other wrongnesses is around, and you say, no, that's wrong. I'm not going to play it that way. I'm not going to play the game that way. And somehow that's hedonistic. You're being some kind of selfish, gluttonous pig like you, because you have basically resigned yourself to the truth that you are. Basically, the basic character of your humanity is flatworm, and that there really is no game to play here. There really isn't. If you're going to be truly honorable, you're going to be truly miserable, and that's a fucking fact.
Epistemology, or value system at least, and such like.
Yeah, fuck you.
You know, these kind of things like life is an imposition are invalid, and you're using these...
Yeah, right. So you know, I mean, this is just basic common sense. If you do something and there's a choice, you can do it or not do it. All right? Those are automatically things that are impositions. And anything that affects another person is an imposition. Our whole life is built out of impositions. And this is just being noted. It's being put in a category. The category is, these are the important impositions in your life. The ones where you are going to cause real, substantive change in the world. All right? Those are the big impositions. So when you decide to create a human being, it's a decision. It does take place in a brain. There is an option not to do it. The option is available to brains. Okay, the two choices are put in front of the brain, and there is the possibility that if they were properly constructed, the logic would say, yes, don't fuck with that because it's an imposition, because you can't control that experiment. But if you don't have that simple bit of logic, that you don't have a right to impose, to roll dice with somebody else's welfare, to play with matches on somebody else's roof or in somebody else's basement. That's not that hard to figure out. I mean, the basic, I said it in other videos, but I mean, you know, next to killing somebody, there's no way you can be more in somebody's fucking business than to fucking give birth to them.
Invalid uses of language as well. I say invalid, I mean, it's not valued, invalued. It's not valued because it doesn't adequately pertain to reality, and that's my.
Yeah, well, whatever. So I don't. How does that even? The concept of imposing doesn't adequately pertain to reality when you're imposing life or death. What else is there? There's imposing life, and there's imposing death, and then there's imposing a circumstance of maybe slavery or exploitation or other things. And I'm simply arguing that all those are impositions, but these are certainly the big ones.
A value judgment on it. It's my subjective value judgment. Saying that it's better to have never been, as if that's an objective statement rather than a subjective opinion, is fallacious to me.
Yeah, whatever. It's being argued as not only applying from personal perspectives. People explain why they see it that way for themselves, why they would not live another life, because they don't see it adding up to it was good to be in that circumstance, that circumstance was acceptable, that it wasn't running a deficit, that it was running a profit of some kind, that they could sit there and say, okay, I would do it because it's not a deficit. It's not a end result is less than what you would less than the cost of maintenance or whatever the description of something too inefficient would be. And then logically it can be applied through just this simple function of the mechanism of life, just as it's been pointed out to you over and over and over and over again, that the only thing that would make it necessary for Plutonians to live, or for Martians to exist, or for Moonyites to live, is their own desire. And the fact that they don't live means their desire doesn't exist, and it means that quite obviously there's no deprivation, there's no negative space there, there's no open door to harm, and there's also nothing lost, because the only mechanism that created the need in the first place was their perception. So it's only our perception that creates the need. The thing has no value intrinsic, and the only thing that has any value left over, the remainder, is the suffering. So you're paying a price for an artificial accomplishment, because the accomplishment isn't real, because it only has value if you exist.
Okay, because there's no such thing as an objective value. You can say it's a consensus. But
no, well, like I said, you can say how confident you are in the truth of the statement. So again, these are premises. If you say there's something else in this universe that has value than the welfare of a sentient being, than the experiential bucket that will be their existence, the experiences that go into that bucket, there's no other thing to calculate value out of, no other way for anything to be relevant in a value way unless it somehow affects sentience. That's just a fact, fathead.
most people would consider that living life as a battery hen it is not, or that life shouldn't have been. But what does that? What's the point of that being a consensus, Fred? What are you arguing here? It's like you're presenting evidence for a point you haven't.
No, he was making a counter-argument to somebody who was saying all life is worth living. And he was just pointing out, yeah, quite obviously there are lives that aren't worth living. I certainly wouldn't live, and most people wouldn't live, and it seems preposterous and ludicrous that somebody would say, yes, go ahead, give birth to me, even though I have no arms and legs, and I'm going to have hundreds of surgeries, and my life is going to just be a long, hard headache. Yeah, that would be really, seems kind of retarded. It seems sick and sadistic and lunaticish to think of any psychology that would say, yes, sign me up for that. Yeah, it's preposterous is what it is. It's just preposterous.
Mate, what's the intention behind saying such a thing? You know?
Well, again, you're not paying any attention to the video. He was responding to somebody who was saying life is always worth it because you get to say, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. And as long as you can say, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, it's all worth it. And that's a pile of shit.
Are you going to argue there's some objective basis of value or morality or meaning?
Yeah, it's really not that hard to say. It's there. The hard part is giving it its exact weight. So it's really hard for us to weight it because we all have Things like headache, it all means something different to each human. Each human has a different reaction to the word headache. Any inconvenience I can describe, any experience I can describe. Some people like to be completely humiliated. Some people would rather die than be humiliated. So these are the facts of it, where there is this ton of nuance to the whole thing. But that's the beauty of the Benatar asymmetry. It's just this intrinsic logic that in functional truth, the positives have no real value because they are made out of addiction. They are made out of hunger. Without your hunger, the food has no value. But you don't need hunger to suffer. See? You see how that is? That's the catch. And that's the thing, the kernel of truth that makes all of this much more navigatable.
Or that there should be, or something like that, because these are all subjective things. These are all things that emanate from sentient brains. Values emanate from sentient brains. You won't find them in the universe. You won't find them under our law.
Well, whatever. So, you're going to wait for God to have written it on a rock? Well, of course the truth isn't written on a rock. It's not written anywhere in space that the Earth is round. Nowhere in space does it say here, the Earth is a sphere-like thing. It's not flat. It doesn't say that. Nowhere does it say in the universe the Earth is not flat. Okay? It doesn't inform us of the truth. We discover the truth. We reveal the truth. And the simple statement being made is through the experience of consciousness, we gain knowledge of the truth, of what it is to be sentient. We have these experiences. We can put them in categories of good and bad. And this is perfectly valid. And it's perfectly valid to say there is a truth regarding this value equation. There is an absolute, in the end, whole context, ultimate, absolute, universal perspective that makes it possible to do this calculation precisely. From our point of view, we can't do it precisely, but we certainly can tell what's on one side of the fence and what's on the other side of the fence. And that's what this argument is made out of, is the fundamental truth that anything on that one side of the fence is likely superficial and bogus, and the stuff on this side of the fence is really, really, really not a good thing. A negative. A real negative.
Or under a cage or anywhere, you'll find them emanating out of sentient beings' brains. The same with meaning as well. You won't find meaning in a chicken's life. You'll find meaning in the brain of the chicken living the life.
Well, whatever that means. Obviously, the chicken has no such context, so it doesn't apply meaning to its existence in that way. But the truth is, its sensations are a roundness. They are a fact of its existence, and that fact has meaning. The fact that things feel is an important fact. It creates value. That's the theory. Now, if you want to disagree with one of those two sentences, then point out that you disagree with them. I can just declare you too stupid to have a conversation with, just put you in a category as babbling idiot who doesn't get it, and just leave it at that. Because every other conclusion, any reasonable, purposeful, useful conversation that isn't, in my opinion, premised on those truths isn't going to go anywhere. There's no fucking point in me talking to you. It'd be like talking to a tree if you don't get it.
And it's better to have never been born, or better to have never been, is a subjective argument, It's not objective.
It's no more or less objective than any other discovered or revealed statement of theoretical truth. So if I say the world is round, we can test it. We can test his statement through the asymmetry. So again, you can counter-theorize that no, there is something intrinsically valuable in the pleasure experience, that you are not first deprivated, that it is not hunger that makes the food tasty and enjoyable, that it's not the negative state first that makes it possible, that somehow the horniness doesn't make the sex good, that somehow the sex would be good without the horniness. No, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. The deprivation, the negative comes first, and all the positives are resolutions of a negative. And so they can't possibly create something of value to pay for the gasoline that's being used.
Argumentation or truth claims or whatever. It's fantasy to assume that. And that's where the appeal to authority comes in, you know. That's where the fallacious reasoning comes in. It's an appeal to authority, that it's true objectively that it's better to have never been.
The argument is that there is an objective truth. There is an end game truth. Okay, that the story was a fable, that this was that, the retard shouldn't have stuck the crayon in his sister's ear, or whatever the thing is. All these questions could be answered from a perspective of all knowledge. And all we're trying to do is say that there's basically we don't need to know every bit of detail. We can resolve the fact that there's a car out there. I can see enough of it to define and describe what the hell that truth is. And the argument that anti-nihilists are making is that we know where we came from, we know what evolution is, we know what this experiment is basically doing and how it functions, and it is possible to resolve the end conclusion, which is going to be that was just a wasteful, dumb experiment conducted by a dumb, ignorant molecule that knew no better.
It's an appeal to authority because those persons arguing these things from a subjective position find that people aren't really, it isn't resonating with enough people. So they're trying to claim it's truth so that people have to resonate with it.
Well, this is just idiotic. I've never argued anything in my existence where I didn't think it was true. Why the fuck would I argue something if I think it's doubtful or not even close to possible? Or just some kind of, well, it's maybe, then I wouldn't be arguing it. I would just be saying, here, I got a wacky theory. What do you think of it? All right? But when you think people are going to argue something, they're going to argue because they're confident. All right? So this is just bullshit. There's a huge difference between things you consider just, well, I'm just messing with those ideas in my head. I haven't got anything solid yet. And things that are just so obvious and so premised and so foundational and so not, there's no alternative explanation. There is no way to undo the evidence. It points at guilt. Everything points at guilt. It's substantial truth. It would require extraordinary, wacky truth it's the only salvation left. And so you go with the conclusion because there's no rational reason not to.
Because people have to accept the authority of the situation, and so on. Psychopath.
Yeah, well, whatever. The bottom line is that action is going to take place. The game will continue to be played or it won't be played. There'll be a war and the revolution will happen, or there won't be a war and there'll be no revolution and the king will get stronger and more powerful. The fact is that it all rests on these conversations, and these conversations will decide the future, fuckwit. And so it's just idiotic to say that it doesn't, even if it was all made out of nothing, the fact that a decisively different reality will exist because one choice is chosen versus another choice, that truth you should be able to concede. Okay? And if you're going to say it doesn't matter whether it's World War III, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That the two futures, one with World War 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the future without those wars are somehow the same. It doesn't matter. There's no value implication. Both worlds would be just fine. Now, maybe you're saying something that idiotic and ludicrous, and people should understand that that's what you're saying, and that's how idiotic and ludicrous you are.
And again, my argumentation kind of holds based upon the evidence presented, Why are you saying it's better to have never been, yet you're claiming it's all subjective? So why would you make such a statement? Plus you say...
He narrowed the context of the statement, so, this is just idiotic. Fred has just been as mushy as possibly could be on this subject. And all he was saying is that there's certainly circumstances I can describe that would certainly fit into the better not to have done that. I mean, he's merely stating that there is such a thing as crime in the world. There is such a thing as something preposterously inefficient and stupid. He's just saying there's stupid things in this world. There's things that are happening that are decidedly unproductive. That they are, in fact, destructive. That almost any possible alternative to that thing would be better than that thing. Jesus.
That's a life that shouldn't have existed. That's, again, just a remarkable simplification and an attempt at claiming objectivity.
Yeah, well, whatever. Your simplification of, let's just go with the default. Let's just go with the Christian default. And that's all it is. It's just a religious notion. It's the only reason why the human race ever concluded there was any purpose to living, right? I mean, it was just to basically shut up the people complaining about how just ludicrously stupid life was. Oh, we just had my kid's 5th birthday. Yeah, and he died the next day. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, bear ate him. Yeah, dragged him off. He was screaming and yelling. You could hear him a half hour later, still screaming as the bear was eating him. Yeah, isn't life stupid? But there's God, so no problem, right? I mean, the only thing you're doing is justifying a stupid religious default. You're just saying the religious people were right. The default is correct. Life isn't what it appears to be, which is just fucking ludicrous. No, this is somehow purposeful. Fuck you, idiot.
Because the chicken in the cage isn't the life. The chicken is the life, and it's in a cage, okay? It's not the life that shouldn't have existed. It's the cage that shouldn't have existed in your moral argument. Okay,
yeah, well, whatever. You can play those kind of games with the whole thing, right? You can just say, well, let's get rid of the predator, and then people say, well, then all the animals will overpopulate, and then blah blah blah, and then they'll die of this disease instead of that disease, and you're just going to trap yourself even more. Because that's the whole nature of the thing. The more you try to do anything with this thing, the more it just keeps breaking. It doesn't have a fix. There's no fixing this stupid game. All right? Yeah, you save somebody's life today, right? You stop a car from hitting them, and what happens? Yeah, they get a brain tumor and slowly die over the next 4 years. Yeah, some favor you did them. Yeah, wow. They should really shake your hand.
Why not rail against the cage instead of railing against the chicken? It's a chicken in the cage thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Why rail against anything? Why not just accept it right up your ass like I do? Yeah, well, fuck you. It's just so stupid. The cage is the game. The game is a cage. The game is a wheel. You just don't want anybody to rail against anything that's going to interfere with your egomaniacal sense of self-importance. And that's all this is about. You can't stand the thought that you're a big, blubbering pile of crap, a stupid, fat flatworm that isn't going to accomplish anything, that doesn't mean a motherfucking thing, that has just been a consuming, wasteful, idiotic cog in the mechanism of an insanely stupid and inefficient machine. And you just don't like that fact.
Why not open the cage? Why not open the cage and also open the latch on the fence that stops the fox getting?
Yeah, right. So why don't you just make people not horny, and then they won't need sex, and don't make them hungry, and then they won't need food, and we can just shove the food into their blood, and then we can just shove the idea that they did it into their head. Why should somebody try to accomplish something? Why not, right? Like a guy needs to climb a mountain. Why not just give him the idea in his head that he did it yesterday? Yeah, give him a thought in his head that just says, I climbed the mountain yesterday, so I don't have to do that. Then what would happen, gratex? Oh, that's right, he'd find some other stupid, idiotic way to shove a stick up his own ass.
And we could have these arguments over statehood and civilization and imposing restrictions and limitations on things. And that's real.
Yeah, whatever. So now you're an anarchist of some kind? Okay, yeah. Oh, they're imposing that standard on me that I'm not allowed to be a glutton and I'm not allowed to trespass on other people's civil rights. Yeah, fuck you.
Positions, that's real, true impositions. You can impose a lot.
Oh, yeah, it's real, true imposition if you what? I don't know, tax people to pay for other people's health care. Yeah. Yeah, but that's a lot more important than having babies. Having a baby is nothing. You know, but having to pay for somebody's health care, it's a fucking imposition.
From the cage, you can impose the fox on the chickens, and you know, you can impose a fence on the chickens, which also imposes it on the fox. And these are all impositions.
Oh, yeah, or you can just concede, oh, no, the shark is good, the Tyrannosaurus let's bring Tyrannosaurus back because it must have been a mistake of the universe to kill them. I mean, right? It was just a dumb meteor, so we shouldn't let a meteor decide what kind of animals will live on Earth. So, damn it, we should bring back those things. Let's get their DNA and let's bring back the Tyrannosaurus so they can eat your fat, blubbery ass. I would actually enjoy that. I mean, if I could vote for it, I would vote for it just so I could watch you get eaten by a fucking Tyrannosaurus because I would laugh my fucking ass off.
These are things that you can do to life. But life isn't an imposition, you know?
No, you know? Yeah, because you say so. Okay, boss. You say so. All right, that's all we need. You say so. No, I need more than that.
Impositions are something that are unwanted.
Ah, there you go. No, they don't. They don't have to be unwanted. As you're going to point out, okay? I mean, the fact is you can impose on somebody and they're just too stupid to know you imposed on them. All right? That's just a fact. But, yeah, intrinsically, right away, that's right. It is an imposition if they don't want it. I didn't want it. I never asked for it. I complained about it as early as I could voice an opinion saying, I don't want this. Can I have a do-over? Is there a time machine? And I can go back and fuck this whole game. All right, so I was complaining. As soon as I could articulate sentences, I was saying, this is stupid. I want to go home. So, but what do I get for that? Nothing. Yeah, so that doesn't work. That doesn't mean anything, right? They just get to impose. That's it. Fuck you.
For the most part, there are.
And certainly all the animals who get eaten up, they don't get to vote. They don't get to sit there and look at the whole game and see themselves getting eaten by the crocodile and the whole fucking slop, or get stuck. They don't see their future selves get stuck in the mud, and then the tigers and lions and bears eat them alive. They don't get to see any of that shit and vote. Oh, yeah, I want that. No, and I think if they could vote, they'll say, fuck you, asshole. You mean I can choose to sit on the couch of non-existence forever? Or I can get eaten by lions alive? Well, fuck that. That's an easy choice.
Impositions that are wanted, but there are suppositions that I unwant, that people keep throwing at me. You know, they complain about impositions, but I'm complaining about suppositions here. You know, you suppose that I'm supposed to believe what you believe.
I suppose that you are required to demonstrate that you earned your high school diploma if you got one. I don't know, maybe you don't have one. Yeah, that you acquire a certain basic understanding of how the game works. And I've basically said it plainly. I mean, religious people have made themselves fundamentally retarded. They're retarded. It's self-retardation. The belief is idiotic, it's delusional, it's full of shit, it's nonsense. Their brain, their logic is completely now broken because they have godified everything, and they'll never understand that it's a car in that driveway. Okay, because God has put antennas on it and made all kinds of other wacky things and painted all kinds of finger painty bullshit on it, and they're never going to understand the truth. Okay, and the same is true for you. If you can't figure out that suffering is where, that the capacity to feel is where all value originates, and that there is an equation to decide values, what is worth what. And although we can't do it explicitly and precisely, we can do it in general categories and logically. You don't have to believe this, but I'm just saying you have to make a counter-argument. There is enough resolution for us to see the game for what it is. And the game doesn't produce anything of real value. It just produces addiction and death.
And you moralise against me for not believing you in particular, Fred, you know what I mean. But life isn't an imposition. Life is the thing that things are imposed upon, you know.
Life isn't an imposition. Life is the thing living imposes upon. What the fuck? I'll try.
Life is the thing that things are imposed upon.
Life is the thing that things are imposed upon. No, it's not going to make any sense.
You know, it's like saying a dog is an imposition on canine. It's ridiculous, you know. Life is imposed upon life. Dog is imposed upon canine.
Right. So it's just ridiculous. If I decide to conduct an experiment, I buy some rats, I breed them, I put them in the experiment, they get chewed up in the experiment, there's a meat grinder in there, they all end up falling in the meat grinder in the end, they go ow, 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 scream, 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 and then the meat I feed to the rats. Okay. I didn't impose on them. I didn't create that environment. Even though I built it, I set it up, I created every bit of it, I bred them, they wouldn't exist without my intervention. Somehow I'm not responsible. I mean, it's just ludicrous.
It's absurd. It's non sequitur. You know, life is not an imposition. Is non sequitur.
Well, whatever. I'm just saying you can't create something without imposing a change in the future. Anything that is a creation is, by definition, there could be the not creation. There could be the alternative of not making it. All right? So it's intrinsically imposing a change on the future. You just can't avoid the imposing nature of it.
Saying that life is an imposition is non sequitur, right? It's like rape is an imposition, you know, ringing my doorbell is an imposition. Come round to my house with a bottle of vodka is an imposition. But a good
change, imposing any change on somebody, influence is an imposition. That's what it is. You influence something, you're imposing change. It's just fundamental.
Imposition, you know, but it's something that I've not asked for, but it's happened. And hence, you know,
it hasn't just happened is the point. It happened through an act of volition, okay, that a process went on. And because the processor didn't have some simple logic in it that said, ooh, this is going to affect that thing. It's going to be a consciousness. It's not going to be me. I'm not rolling dice with my welfare. I'm rolling dice with its house. I'm rolling dice with its welfare. I'm gambling with its welfare. They couldn't utter that sentence, and therefore they couldn't understand why they shouldn't do it.
That's an imposition. Could be good or bad, damn. Good or bad are baby words used by parents to control their infants because they don't want to go in depth into explanations of things.
Yeah, whatever. So there's no such thing as good and bad now by flubber theory. Yeah, why? You know, just let's have a civil war. Let's put, you know, people who don't believe there's any good and bad in the world on one side and people who do on the other side. And let's just get this over with. Because it's just ludicrous to live on a planet with things that can actually speak English and they don't know there's any such thing as a good result and a bad result.
So they appeal to simplicity, emotion, and authority in order to push forward behaviours that they want. So, I mean, you know,
yeah, right. So, yeah, that's the whole theory of the round earth came about that way. It was just an appeal to authority, just imposed on people. No. It was argued and the evidence supported it. Idiot.
It's talking about good or bad. But let's say there are impositions that are imposed upon life. But life isn't an imposition to impose upon non-existence, because.
But life isn't. I mean, these are incredible sentences. Right? You've been taking lessons from Professor Anton. I mean, this is just gibberish.
Life, but life isn't an imposition to impose upon non-existence, because you can't impose verb upon a non-subject.
Yeah, whatever. So again, he's just basically saying that there's two choices, and because one choice doesn't get chosen, that somehow the other choice isn't a real thing in a sense. And it's real in the sense that if you choose otherwise, it's real. And if you choose otherwise, then that thing becomes the non-reality. But it's just stupid to say that it doesn't exist as a choice. It exists as a circumstance that is in the realm of possible. And the choice is which possibility are you going to impose? You have to impose one of them.
You know, I mean, an existent being is a subject. A non-existent being is an oxymoron. I mean...
Yeah, well, whatever. So again, so if I could murder somebody, he's now a non-existent being, so it's okay, I didn't kill anything because it's obviously non-existent, so it doesn't exist. So how the fuck could it possibly be missing its life? Can't miss its life if it's dead. So where's the harm? Oh, that's right, there is none. So it's okay to kill.
You could say, let's hypothesize, you know, that I had a sister, but I don't have a sister. That sister doesn't exist. Now, saying a sister doesn't exist again is wrong. It's just inadequate. The sister is a fictional character, and that fictional character exists as a fictional character.
What exists is the capacity to understand how the world would be changed if the sister existed. And that is a different model of reality. So you can take the reality that is, and you can take the reality that would have been, and you can compare them. And there's no crime in doing that. It's a completely logical function. It's something we do all the fucking time. We compare to reality to the other alternative realities that were or are in our realm of possible. And certainly when we're projecting a future, you don't exist in the future yet. I can see you in the future, though. I can program a model of reality that has you in the future in it. And I can have a world, a model, where you're not in the future. And that's what we do. That's what logic is. That's its function. Stupid fuck.
So my sister isn't non-existent. My sister is a fictional character. You know.
Everything is fictional in the future. Okay? But the fact is there will be a future. That's a fact. One of the possible futures will be the future. You get it?
Non-existent. You can have a non-existent person. It's an oxymoron. And so on. But life is not imposed upon you. To say life is imposed upon you means...
It's imposed as soon as there is a decision that says, I'm going to conduct the experiment. It's an experiment. It's a fucking event. It takes... response video 2, gratex once again, might as well go through this crap, and he's just such full of shit, and blah, 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 blah. So he starts off with this crap.
First of all, I'm not saying you are a pessimist. You're manifesting pessimism. But,
Yeah, you're manifesting pessimism, but you're not a pessimist. What a pile of crap. You called him up, you're being pessimistic. You put the modern mystic, you put me in this category of pessimism bullshit. All right, because we basically say, yes, it's, at least me and the modern mystics say, or at least I say pretty explicitly, that yes, the game just doesn't provide the mechanism for your victory, okay? There will be no victory here. And it's basically assured just from what has been already spent in the past guarantees that the end result is fail. But there's still not even any potential from where we are now. Even if you eliminate the past crimes, there's no future potential, shithead. But don't argue that. Just keep using your bullshit verbiage. So let's just skip this whole... Well, go ahead, play. Just say it.
You're not necessarily a pessimist. You're not innately a pessimist. And that's not even a valid criticism of somebody to say they are a pessimist. I mean...
Yeah, you're the one who did it, shithead. I'm going to skip it. It's just too pointless. I mean, why'd you bring it up then, jackass? I'm not going around the internet calling you a fucking optimist, jackass. Well, I sort of am. I'm calling you a unicorn-chasing lunatic. A fool chasing bullshit. And then forcing other people, tying them up and saying, come along, play my game. Fuck you.
Appeals to simplicity. The appeals to authority. And the appeals to emotion.
Well, again, what the hell is that crap? There's no appeals to authority. Appeals to emotion means any time you appeal to the fact that there is a harm and that we should have a discussion about whether something's productive or destructive. An appeal to emotion is to say the machine is run amok. It's an appeal to emotion to say don't drive your car if it has a flat tire. it's an appeal to emotion to say, yeah, don't drive drunk. I mean, anything you say is an appeal to emotion. Fuck you, stupid fuck.
And that's something that we're not allowed to do. I mean, look at the comments on the video, like from the usual suspects. It's always the same. I mean, Herman Church called me a rapist because I think it's okay to have kids.
Well, yeah, again, you're going to bring up the imposition argument. It's a good thing you're going to bring it up because that's the parallel. All right? You're saying you want something. You're saying you can take it by imposing it on these things that may well be a victim, that will, in fact, not enjoy the loving you're going to impose on them. They don't want your fucking love. They don't want your fucking world. They don't want your fucking delusions. They don't want your aggrandized super ego bullshit. They don't want to play your stupid fucking game. All right? So for them, it's a fucking rape.
Yeah, I mean, that's just fucking ridiculous, you know. But... You know,
oh, yeah, an unconsensual act. It's ridiculous to compare non-consensual acts. Okay, any act that you impose on somebody else, that you force their participation, that you initiate their participation, that somehow you shouldn't be accountable for that you don't have to in any way justify your fucking behavior. Well, that's fucking outrageous. That's fucking bullshit.
That's Herman Church being melodramatic as usual, you know, derived energy.
Right, it's melodramatic to just bring up the simple facts that, there's a ton of people, a big pile of them, who don't feel privileged, who don't think the past fulfilled their responsibility to create a world before they said, I'm going to make new people. I'm going to force somebody else to play this stupid game. I've endorsed my slavery. I've fomented my slavery by deficit spending and creating a shithole of a capitalist empire, and that, I'm going to force it on the next generation. Well, fuck you. Fuck you, the past generation, and fuck you, jackass. I don't want what you want. Keep me the fuck out of it, shit brain.
Really missing the point, as usual, and trying to push forward their point and refute it.
Yeah, just clone your flabby fat ass, okay, and then enslave your flabby fat ass.
Still trying to push forward their point. In fact, when I reason with somebody and then they ignore the reason, but then I try again and they ignore it, 3 strikes and they're out, then I go to, psychobabble phase as to...
Yeah, whatever. Just keep making excuses for the fact that you're not making a good enough argument. That your argument is fallacious, that it's nonsense, that it's bullshit, that it's not going to convince somebody who's going to apply a little bit of reason. Just as you can't figure out that when you have a child, when you initiate the experiment, when you create the experiment, you are responsible for the experiment, shitwit, that you have imposed it on the world. The world did not have to have it. It would not have happened unless you, through your behavior, initiate it, jackass. That makes you the imposer, fuckwit.
Analysing why they are rejecting this reason so often and consistently. And then once they ignore the psychobabble, which should motivate them into trying to be reasonable.
Oh yeah, they should try to figure out when you're being an asshole and when you're just being an anus. Fuck you, you smelly hole.
And be more objective. Then 3 strikes and they're out on that, and then it's just mockery, and only lulls remain.
Yeah, whatever. Lulls. Yeah, this is a great bit of little rhetoric. It's almost as fantastic as Dancing with the Stars, this whole invention of the lulls thing. So, yeah, right there, that's a strike for you right there, asshole. Who finds it any kind of lullsiness, okay, that you can't have a fucking rational, serious conversation about something like suffering, that assholes turn into something to lulls about? Fuck you. Die, you stupid fat pig.
That's what I prefer to do, okay? It's not as if that's the way people should behave in some kind of moral prescription.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, that's right. I've just ridiculed something, but I'm not making a prescription. I'm not making a statement. I'm not saying anything. Aha, I'm just lulzing some more. Oh, no, I'm in anus phase. No, I'm in asshole phase. No, I'm in, fucking utter phase. Fuck you.
And on what is right and what is wrong, That's my preference. If I want people to grow, these are the stages I should go through. Why do I want them to grow? Because
Oh yeah, grow. Isn't that an interesting way to... No, you want them to fuck tard. It is not growing to sit there and be a 5-year-old and be duped. Okay, you're going to talk about Santa Claus in the East. You're the one who's bought the fairy tale shitwit. All right, there's no evidence that life is any kind of functionality innately in it, beyond the fact that it's a gladiator game. I have no evidence of anything else happening out there. There's no intrinsic purpose or anything else. This is all stuff just been invented by people wearing clown suits, by silly fucking humans. And you've eaten up every fucking bit of that drivel.
To live in a world with less violence and horror in it.
Well, we have less violence and less horror than there was 1,000 years ago. And it's still shit, fuckwit. That's right, because it's intrinsic to the game. You have to throw it in the dungeon before it can crawl out. That's the only game in town, jackass. Create the deprivation to create the need to climb out. So that's all you're doing. You just keep throwing your kids in a fucking cesspool, in a fucking hole, and then say, swim, swim, Junior, swim. Fuck you.
And how do we achieve that? Well, we can argue about how I achieve it. But the conditional's there. If I want this, then...
If you want, and that's the basic problem here. You don't seem to understand that it's not about your want. It's about a rational argument about the efficiency of the entire game. There's a whole bunch of pieces on the board. All right, and they're all going to have effects imposed upon them by the gameplay. And the question is can we justify the gameplay, the effects that are going to be imposed?
And then we could argue over then what we should do about it. But antinatalism and ethicalism is arse backwards, because it's saying because it can't be perfect, then...
Again, that's not even the argument, but in a zero-sum game, in a game that doesn't have any function, that's right, it certainly can't be expensive. It can't cost something. That makes it a negative, because it has no intrinsic functionality to justify itself. If a washing machine that doesn't wash dishes, okay, is radioactive, well then then you don't keep it in the house, right? Because it's not only that it just takes up space. No, the problem is it's radioactive. It's a negative now. It's not a neutral. It's not just a benign non-functioner. No, it's a negative. And the human race is a non-functional machine. It doesn't produce anything of value. It satisfies addicts, and that's all it fucking does. It gives them their fucking heroin and keeps them breathing, and that's all it does, shithead.
It's not worth it, It's an abject grief reaction.
Yeah, right. So, and you're just a whiny fat baby who didn't get enough ice cream. You're just a dimwit who, as a child, shoved his head up his own ass too many fucking times and has shit for fucking brains. This is just bullshit rhetoric, all right? This isn't about some kind of psychology, you jackass. It's an argument being made about, well, let's find God in here somewhere, okay? The human race lived on God forever, all right? There is no fucking God, so now what's your justifying purpose? What's the fucking game here? What exactly are you accomplishing? Oh, that's right, absolutely nothing. And is the thing radioactive? Well, damn fucking straight it is, because look at all the fucking shit suffering. So you have the negative liability and you have no fucking productive accomplishment. You're not accomplishing anything more than the non-existent Plutonians. They are accomplishing just as fucking much as you, dick shit. I'll be back to this. I have things to do. I have to do this in pieces. Busy day.